surprised were you by how quickly these 12 Manhattan jurors reached a verdict? And do you believe that Trump received a fair trial?
Well, first, I don't think 11 hours of deliberation on a series of offenses that really are based upon the same factual findings is that quick a verdict. I thought more probably it would be sometime tomorrow, but I don't think 11 hours is the issue. It'll be interesting to find out the effect that the two lawyers that the defense allowed to remain on the jury, what effect they had on the verdict. As far as the fairness of the trial, there's nothing about this trial that I have seen. Now, I wasn't in the courtroom, and I have to go on the reports that I read from everyone who puts them out, that Marchand was a very deliberate judge, a very measured judge. He denied certain instructions to the jury that were basically telling the jury that everything that Todd Blanche was going to say was the truth. Which turned out to not be true. So I don't think that he gave those instructions. I think he got due process as it is defined. And I don't think that there's really that much of an appeal. Some people are talking about an appeal on the basis that the indictment was flawed. The problem is that when you move for a statement of particulars, which Trump's lawyers did, and you get one, then you've waived that objection about flaws in the indictment. So I'm not sure how much is really there for him to appeal, but it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, and I want to talk about that appeal process a little bit later on in our conversation. But I'm curious, what did you make of when the jury first requested to hear back parts of particularly Pecker and Cohen's testimony, and then also to hear instructions from the judge once again?
Okay. The instructions first, I'll go to the instructions first. The instructions that they asked for were basically, please take out the first portion, which are the general instructions about deliberations and reasonable doubt and all of that, and just concentrate on the offenses themselves, which took up about half of the 55 pages. And so they wanted to hear and make sure that to each and every count, the elements were the same, and they were looking for the same thing. What they were also looking for is to be told that in order for this to be a felony, keeping these records fraudulently, to be a felony has to have an underlying criminal offense that it is covering up for. There were three theories that were set forth by the state as to different criminal offenses that it was meant to cover up for, and they were told you don't all have to agree on the theory. Just agree, if you all agree that all the other elements have been met and there is a theory of guilt that you agree with, then you must return a verdict of guilty. And that's what really kind of sunk the ship for former President Trump, because they could all disagree as to what the underlying offense was, but still reach the same verdict that he was guilty of the offenses. And so the instructions were very important.
And how unusual was that, that there were these multiple theories that one could apply?
Not really all that unusual. That is that the state and or the government can, in the alternative, set forth theories for the guilt of the defendant, as long as the defendant is made and put on notice of those theories. And that was the answer to the bill of particulars that the state gave them. They said, these are our three theories. And allowing the jury to pick one of those theories is not unusual. In many states, alternative theories of guilt are permitted. So I don't think that that's really an appellate issue.
What happens now to Trump as far as that appeals process? I know you touched on it, but the defense has said the case is replete with reversible error. And does the appeals process start immediately? Could a decision come before the election? And, you know, there's been some talk of possibly bypassing the appellate court in New York and heading to the Supreme Court. What are your thoughts on all of that?
Well, first of all, there's no federal issue in this case at that point. So going to the United States Supreme Court is not going to happen. This is a state court prosecution, and it has to go through the state court process. The state court process for appeals in the state of New York is actually very lengthy and very slow. It starts on July 11th when the judge enters a final judgment of guilt and pronounces sentence. At that point, there are a certain number of days, usually it's 30 to 60 days, for Mr. Trump's lawyers to file a notice of appeal. Once that notice is filed, then they have to file another document that instructs for all of the transcripts to be sent up to the appellate court and any other records within the court record that they want the appellate court to consider. Once that is done and the record is complete, then there is a period of time, usually 45 to 60 days, to file their initial brief. I anticipate that Mr. Trump's lawyers will not want to comply with the limit of the number of pages that they can write, so they have to move for more pages, and they'll have to move for more time in order to complete all of their research and file that brief. Once that brief is filed, then the state has a certain amount of time in order to file their brief, and they will also ask for more pages, and they will also ask for more time. And then after that brief is filed, there's what's known as a rebuttal brief, and that has to be done within a certain number of days. After all of that is done, then the appellate court will set an oral argument on the appeal. I don't anticipate oral argument in this case for anywhere from 8 to 12 months after the sentencing takes place. Sometime in July of next year, August of next year, somewhere in there. And then it's a slow process for them to review all of the records and write an opinion, which is the opinion of a panel of appellate judges, which could take another 6 to 8 months. It is not unusual in the state of New York for an appeal on a criminal case to take up to 2 years to finish.
Only a couple of seconds left, but sentencing is set for July 11th. How does a judge decide the penalty? What are the guidelines there? And how likely is jail realistically? And will we see a stay till we see the whole appeals process play out?
Okay, I will start at the end, the last question. There will be an appellate bond that is called a supersedious bond. He will not go to jail immediately. Some people are estimating 6 months to a year. I'm estimating more to 2 to 3 years that he will get. He can get up to 4 years on each count, but he's not going to get 136 years. That isn't going to happen. It's going to be a concurrent sentence on all of the counts, and I anticipate that he's going to get less than 4, probably around 3 years. He can and probably will end up being incarcerated absent a reversal of his conviction, but he won't go to state prison. There'll be a deal worked out between the state of New York and the federal authorities to take Mr. Trump into custody, and he will go to a prison camp which has no bars, no barbed wire. They live in dormitory style ways, and there's no lockup per se. Therefore, his protection from the Secret Service will be able to protect him while he is incarcerated. And I anticipate that will happen. I'm not sure what will happen if he's convicted in one of the criminal case, in particular the one in Washington, before the election. That's going to be more problematical. That could end up being concurrent time, but it's probably going to be more severe. So yes, if his appeal is not granted and it is not reversed, he will be incarcerated.
It's a sad day, former president.
It is.
A convicted felon. It's nothing, to smile about. But
No,
we thank you very much for your time, Jeffrey Swartz.
You're welcome. Have a wonderful day.